What's up, y'all? My name's Leticia, and you're listening to Confessions from the Closet, a podcast all about vulnerability and overcoming. It's time we get ourselves unstuck from these boxes and these closets that we've allowed ourselves to be trapped in. We're so much bigger than these boxes we've been in. It's time we go deep, y'all. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another week of Confessions from the Closet. This week, I am really excited. I am joined by my friend, me and Monty's best friend, Matt. And we're going to get to hear about his story today.
Hello.
So, I'm excited you're here.
I am too. I'm nervous. I am nervous.
You shouldn't be nervous. You'll be great. It'll be fun. Okay, so, like with everyone, I just want you to start with your story. Like, whatever part of your story you want to share from when you're younger. Like, whatever you want to share.
I don't know. I would like to maybe, if it's cool with you, like maybe talk about how we met.
Yeah, how we met.
Because
yeah,
it has a lot to do with y'all's story. You know what I mean? And I thought that was I just thought I always think that our story is funny. How whenever y'all started, I felt like it was going too fast, and I remember being at something at the fairgrounds. And I can't remember what it was. It was like a chili cook-off or something like that.
Yeah. Excel or something.
And Maudie called me, or Maudie called me and said, "We're at this venue and I really think I like it." And I was like, "What venue? What are you talking about?" And she was like, for a wedding. Oh. And I was like, what? Like, I was like,
yeah,
you're my best friend and you haven't told me that you're looking at venues. And, y'all spoke about this on some of your other things. It just happened real fast. I can't remember what you called it.
What, you hauled it?
You haul it. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say lesbian did.
That's the same thing.
But I just thought it was, and it's funny because it's normal for some reason in our culture. Is that the word you use?
Like, I don't know.
For that to happen for various reasons. But I was pissed. I think because I didn't know you.
Yeah,
and
it was quick.
I didn't know you very well. I only met you maybe once or twice whenever she told me that. And we hadn't been talking for a little bit, but sometimes, your friend, when you have even your best friend, you ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those times when we hadn't spoken a week or two. And that's what I thought it was. I had no idea she was
like that.
In love and had found this person that she was spending all her time with. And I was a little bit mad. Like I wanted to talk to her about it. Like, hey, are you sure? Like, you don't even know this girl. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I just held my tongue and because y'all turned out to be perfect for each other, and I'm happy that y'all. But it's just funny how things happen and how close we've become. Like me and you. Sometimes I feel like
talk more.
We have more of a relationship than me and Maudie do because she works so much and I work so much. And whenever I'm off, I can call you and bounce ideas off your head about things I'm doing at my house or you're doing at your house, or it's just
we have a lot in common.
Funny. Yeah, it's funny. And I think sometimes we bump heads, but it's
because of it.
Good.
Yeah.
In a good way.
We challenge each other.
We're able to like, okay, that's stupid.
That was a silly argument. Sorry for what I said. Sorry for what I said when I was drinking. No, I love that. It was quick. Because I went ring shopping 2 weeks after I met her.
Well, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but I do know that whenever I watched the video of you and your mom, and you said that you'd had a ring for weeks. Mm-hmm. That's how you said it. And I was like, even that day, just recently, I was like, how did she have a ring for weeks? Because
it felt like it was
I was like
a day.
Already mad, back then, And I was like, how did you have a ring for weeks? But it's because you knew right away. And I didn't.
No, I went and bought a ring like right away. I made her go with my mom to go look at rings. and then take
With your mom?
pictures. Yeah, take pictures, so I could choose which one I thought looked the best, and then I went and bought it right away, and had to like call my dad to tell him because I worked for him at the time, so that they could call about my finances. And my poor dad's like, "You're buying what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm buying a ring, Dad. It's happening." But then I kept it for like probably 2 weeks in the drawer, and finally I was like, okay, it's time. But it didn't go as well as I had hoped, as far as some people's reactions. It's cool.
The only one that mattered is
She
weren't
was
fine.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. It's turned out to be okay. We're almost, what are we at, 7.5 years?
Yeah. It's
So,
crazy.
Yeah.
New York was
Yeah, you
one
were
of my
there.
favorite memories.
You got to walk Monty down the aisle.
It was the last trip
That's,
last real trip me and Tino have had since Chloe was born.
Yeah.
Because it was just months and months. It was in December?
Mm-hmm. Right
13.
on.
Right?
No, it was the 7th.
No.
Because we.
The
yeah,
year.
2013.
And then Chloe was born November 14.
Yeah.
And you don't get to take trips anymore.
No. That was the only trip we went on without kids in our entire marriage, because we already had a Maya, so
oh yeah,
we didn't ever have alone time. Yeah. That was it. And now Apollo's, we haven't left him ever. Still,
it's hard.
It's too hard. I can't do it. That's fun.
So, I don't know.
I like that
because I thought that's important, because that's how we became close, and it was out of something that was.
And
I was worried about.
Yeah, but you've known Monty how long? Because y'all were friends.
Golly, I've known Monty probably since I was about 13.
That's crazy.
And I'm 40. Now we've been best friends since I was about 22, 23, something like that.
That's crazy.
So maybe even a little bit younger. We started working together at some point right around that time. Mm-hmm. And then couldn't get us away from each other. Everybody thought we were together.
I know. Didn't they try to set y'all up when y'all were younger, though?
Well, yeah. Whenever we were younger, whenever we were like 15, I was 15, so she was a little bit younger. Maybe I was 16, but I was hanging around some of the same people she was hanging around, and we kind of talked to each other. I think we even held hands or kissed or something, but it wasn't like it's funny because it was like I knew I was doing it for everybody else, and I know she was doing it for everybody else. Yeah. So it was after we became real good friends, we talked about it, and it's like we had the same ideas, and are like, this might work out perfect because
we be each other's beards.
Yeah. And so
she was like, I knew he was gay. I don't know how anyone else knew he was.
Yeah, I know she always says that. She's like, I knew he was a little fag.
That's what she always says. That's funny. No, y'all are so cute. She was talking about it. She's like, my one bestie this morning. But okay, now I want to know, just because you grew up in like a situation that not everyone grows up in, and so
yeah, I feel like probably I was super lucky. Like I have one of my grandmas, because I'll explain a little more in a minute, but one of my grandmas, her name is Pauline, used to tell me, don't worry, Matthew, don't let anybody tell you nothing, because you're lucky. You have so many moms and so many dads, and you got so many grandmas. And she always like put that in my head and made me feel kind of good about it, even though I kind of felt bad about what was going on. I guess she could maybe see it, or she could feel it, and she would say that, and it would always, or maybe somebody would be like, you have a lot of moms, or you have a lot of grandmas, and she'd be like, don't worry about it, Matthew, and so that was always nice. But my mother, my biological mom, had me when she was 14, and so from the time I was born, I lived with her and her mother, my grandmother. Her name was Clara. She, from what I understand now, she had a tumultuous relationship with everybody after I was born, probably because they were upset with her for having a kid so young. And so, at whenever I was about 2.5, I went to go live with an aunt and an uncle who, became my parents, my mom and my dad, Abe and Nat, and they were super good to me, and we had a good life. I had with them. They had 2 girls, and so I have 2 sisters because of that, Veronica and Michelle. But I always felt like I was, in 2 ways, I felt like I was different, because I wasn't really part of the family, and I knew that. And they made me feel like, I remember a conversation we had when I was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, and it was a good conversation. It was about God and Jesus, and we were talking before we went to bed, and I asked my dad if I could call him Dad, because I called him Uncle Abe. And he said, yeah. He called me boy, and he said, yeah, boy, I'm your dad. And I said, okay. And that was just it. From that day forward, that he was just Dad. And in the same conversation we had with Mom, and she was Mom. That was that. And so, and my sisters were my sisters. That's just the way it was going to be. And so it was fine. That being said, I was really spoiled by my grandma and my mom prior to going there. Mostly my grandma, and was kind of a mama's boy, and as I would come to know later, they called me sissy and crybaby, and whatever. I knew even then, like when I was young, that I was different. Like that I when you're that age, you don't know how to word it. So I can't explain what I felt. Then I just knew it was different. I knew it was not the same as everybody else. I remember having a friend in like kindergarten, and I remember, and like if you're in kindergarten and you have like a girlfriend, and they're not really your girlfriend, you just like hold their hand at lunchtime or recess or whatever, and that's your girlfriend. I had one of them, and I remember going home and didn't even care to think about her, but I just couldn't wait to go see Andrew again, my buddy. That it was just that kind of thing. It's kind of just those little things always. And then as I got a little older, sports were never my thing. I ran some track and I did okay, but my dad said I had long legs. That's what I should do. So, I did some of that. I did some softball when I got a little older, but it's never was nothing that I cared about or wanted to do. It was not it wasn't something I was interested in.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember where I was going with that. But anyway, my thoughts that whole time were, that I was different. Then, like gym class happens, at some point. And I knew that these, other people were not thinking the way I was thinking. Like there was just no way. Like that's not how it could be. So, I guess when I was about 8 or maybe 9, and I'll say this, whenever I was growing up in that house, we were close knit. It was a good family. My parents owned a gas station. We had money. You know what I mean? Like I thought we were rich. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not sure if we were, but we didn't want for anything or need for anything.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I was a little bit of a disappointment, because I felt like, especially later, that they wanted a boy. They had 2 girls and they wanted a boy, and my mom had a kid too young. And these are just, I want to say this to whoever's listening, if anybody in my family listens to this, these are feelings that I had. I'm I know some things are different now because I've had conversations with family members. And they've made me feel more comfortable about what actually happened. Mm-hmm. But whenever you're a kid, you just make up. Whenever you're a kid, especially in a Hispanic family, you don't get a talk like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and this is why we're gonna do. You don't get an explanation. You just get the result. And so, I made up my own reasons, and my reasons were. Whenever I was about 9, I went to go move back with my grandma and my other aunt, my mom Natalie's sister. So now there's 3 sisters involved. So now there's Rika, who is my biological mom, Natalie, who raised me till I was about 9, and her sister Barbara, who lived with my grandma.
Yeah.
And so I went to go move with them, and my grandma loved me so much. Like, everybody said she was a mean old lady, but she didn't treat me that way. She treated me like, probably, I think that's probably why they said I was a sissy, because of her. Because I mean, she didn't even make me take a bath by myself. Like, she just doted on me. And I think she just felt like she had 5 kids when she was younger, and she just couldn't do for them. You know, she had 3 jobs all the time, and she had to take care of them and pay the bills. And I was just a little baby in her house, and my mom was a kid, and so she was able to do what she couldn't do before, you know. Again, my thoughts, what I feel like, because everybody would be like, she spoils you, and don't let her spoil you. I can't believe she spoils you. And especially because she didn't do that with anybody else ever. Yeah. And so anyway, I go back to live with my grandma and my aunt, and I don't know why, but I make up the reason that I was not the kid that my aunt and uncle wanted. They wanted a boy, and I was not the quintessential boy. I didn't care for sports. I didn't want to be competitive. I made sure. I mean, I tried my hardest to do things, but I just wasn't interested. Anyway, so my thought process was that that's why I was moving back. And it hurt my feelings. But when I got there, these 2 women were like, oh, like they were just so excited. They treated me like a prince. My aunt, Barbara, I guess she thought maybe she couldn't have kids, or she just hadn't been lucky. She was a little bit older already by the time I moved in. And she didn't have any kids yet. And so she wanted me with her everywhere she could go. And my grandma still spoiled me. And she was meaner to me, but I was an older kid, and I was spoiled. I got pretty much everything I wanted and lived however I wanted to live. And my aunt and uncle stayed a good part of my life, the ones that I lived with, Abe and Nat. They just, they weren't there day to day, you know? So if I was going to get in trouble or I needed to be yelled at or something like that, they'd call them, or, you know, stuff like that. But, and I still, by this time, I'm sure by 9 or 10, I knew who I was. I knew who I was. But when I started living with them, and I'll just go back a little bit. Whenever I lived with Abe and Nat, we went to church pretty regularly, but not to the same church. We tried this one, and we tried that one, and sometimes they would just send us on the school bus or the kids bus and stuff like that. And God was always talked about, you know. And most of those churches were like just Christian churches, not like a denomination like Catholic or whatever. So they would talk about being gay, and you know, it was never in a good context. But I was a kid, and especially before, when I was still with them, I didn't know what that meant all the way. You know, by then I already kind of knew I might be that person because of how I felt inside, but I didn't know for sure. And I remember even thinking like that all boys and all girls thought all boys and all girls were pretty or handsome. But if you're a boy, you just talk about girls. And if you're a girl, you just talk about boys. That's just the way it is because you're a boy, you know? So I didn't think that I was completely different. Then I just thought it was weird how like they were on my mind a lot more, stuff like that, you know? By the time I got to my grandma and my aunt's house, they were Catholic, and my aunt went to a church here in town, and they really talk about it, and they really talk about how it's an abomination. And I remember like people had been to prison for whatever reason, and you know, they were telling them that they could come back and that they could be saved, and the way they talked about a gay person was not that. It was like, you can't come back from that. Like, and so that's, you know, you get that in your head, and you don't forget it, you know, you just keep it there. So I just kind of put that in the back of my mind, and I tried to focus on doing things that weren't gay.
Yeah.
You know, so especially like whenever I had my, if there was a family event or anything like that, I always made sure I had a girl with me, and I always made sure to have a girlfriend. I wasn't a football star, because that for most of the family would have fixed everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. So I just made sure I just always had a girlfriend with me. I always say like I was a slut for no reason. Just because I needed to do it for other people. Especially, I know that like there were just some people that already would say, you know, there was a look, or, you know, I was like, I gotta make sure I bring so-and-so with me next time I'm around them, so that they can see we'll make out for sure in front of them or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid now I think about it, but
you were so worried about it.
That's how it was. Yeah, it was always
crazy.
on mind. It was always on mind. Always. Yeah, it was just always on mind. There wasn't a time that I wasn't thinking what I looked like.
Yeah. How
my hands were. What my voice sounded like.
Yeah.
Or my accent. I don't know does a gay guy have an accent? I know there's a like effeminate, or you know what I mean. I always tried to make sure that wasn't there, because I already didn't have much to work with as far as you know, being able to pass. So I thought, well, I'll just always have girls with me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't just have girlfriends, because my dad would kill. Well, why do you have a bunch of girlfriends? They're not, you know, they're not your girlfriend. They're just your girlfriends. Why are you hanging out with girls? You know what I mean? Yeah. Couldn't have that. So they had to be my girlfriend. Like, I had to date them, and you know, that was my pass. I had that's what I had to do. So,
do you think any of the girls ever knew?
Not the ones that dated me.
No.
No.
They never thought they suspected?
No.
I wonder. I mean, I had boyfriends.
There was one. Yeah, there was one that, and then in the end, I mean, there was, whenever I decided not to do that anymore, it was because I felt like I was found out, and I felt like there's no reason, like, to keep it
pretending or hiding.
So I just decided not to anymore. Like, in my mind, by this time I'm 19 or 20, something like that. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to be around them, and I don't have to go to church.
Yeah.
And I can just live my life. You know, like, I had a house. I was lucky. My grandma gave me a house whenever I graduated high school, and I moved in there. It was a shithole when I moved in, and I moved in as fast as I could, because I just needed to be alone. I needed to be able to hide who I was, and it was simple. worked and I went home, and sometimes I snuck out and went to the gay bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad now I look back on that, because so many people, especially in those times, maybe not so much now. I feel like an old ass idiot saying that, but back then, I just said it again. Back then,
It was back then, Matt. Told Marty she's an old gay.
It was you hid, you snuck around, but doing that, you put yourself in a lot of risk. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nobody knew you were at that gay bar. Nobody mm-hmm. knew what you were doing or who you were with or what you were doing. I could have been killed or hate crimed or whatever, and nobody would have known.
Yeah.
How it happened or why it happened, or because you hear about that, especially you heard about it then. Matthew Shepard comes to mind. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I thought of.
He was sneaking around and he found somebody that he thought he could have something with, even if it was a fling. You grasp for whatever little fiber that you can get because you're stuck in a closet. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then he got, which for people who don't know, he got murdered, right? Like, yeah,
they killed him and
tortured him and left him
on a fence post in, like, I want to say Wyoming or something like that, and it was freezing and
he was young
out there.
Yeah, I always think about that, especially when I was coming out. It's scary.
So during those times, I for sure made a concerted effort, like, to push God away. I because I knew I grew up with that, and I believed it. Mm-hmm. So I believed what I was doing was completely wrong, but I knew it was who I was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just decided to push God away.
You chose yourself. You had to.
And that was rough. Then, whenever I was around, right after that, I met a guy who was older than my mom.
Really? I didn't know this.
And he was a drug seller, and he gave me pretty much everything I wanted. I was like 20 and he was like 38. And I was like, this is who I'm going to be with forever. Mm-hmm. Even though now you think back, like, that would never work. He's a drug seller. He's older than your mom. He's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I think he cared about me. And he wouldn't even let me work. There's probably more, what is it called whenever, like, possessive than anything, because he made me quit my job. Oh, wow. He started paying all my bills at my house, but made me live with him. And I started telling my family that he was just a roommate. And even my aunt, the one that I lived with, thought he was handsome and wanted me to, like, maybe hook her up with him. Oh my gosh. And I kept thinking, oh my God, I can't. She was like, how come you don't tell him to come say hi to me? And I'd be like, no.
That's funny.
So, of course, that relationship turned into a big, huge mess. Mm-hmm. And it fell apart real ugly. And I had met a guy while I was living with him who he had told me in the past that he liked, that he thought he was handsome. Mm-hmm. And so the next time I happened to see that guy at the bar, I went up to him. This guy was at the bar.
Yeah.
And that guy was at the bar. And I was like, I'm going to go talk to that guy because it'll make him jealous. Because I still wanted to go back to that guy. And that's Tino.
That guy.
He was at the club we were at with his parents.
Tino was.
And his sister.
He's so cute.
And his brother.
I love him. His whole family.
And I don't know. I want to say he had just told them recently as well, and they were trying to support him, so they went out with him.
They're the best.
So that they could support him at the gay bar.
That's so sweet. That like gives me tears.
So we went. I was talking to him, and before I knew it, I probably drank too much, and we were kissing in front of his parents. Like, it was just. Now I think back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But if you want to call it, what would you call it? You hauling it?
Yeah, you hauled it for sure.
He came to my house that night, and then never essentially left. I mean, he went home like the next day and got a bunch of stuff and came back. And we've been together for almost 20 years now. That's
crazy. I didn't know he was like the only one besides the first guy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, I
knew y'all had been together forever.
I will say, whenever I was dating girls, I would sneak out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would, or God, if I was out with my homeboys and we were drinking or whatever, and homeboys, I don't even say that anymore, but that's who they were. And I would be like, oh, I'm tired. I'm gonna go home.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be like 1:30, and I'd race to Sassy's. It's a bar that used to be here.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
And I'd race over there, and I'd have a couple drinks, and then I'd go home, maybe with somebody or something. But that's the sad thing about it, is like those were my only options to be who I was. Mm-hmm. So
sneak around.
I did it, you know, and I'm not super proud of it, but everybody has their past, and and I don't regret anything. You know?
You shouldn't.
So but anyway, then I met Tino, and his parents, they were super religious.
Mm-hmm.
His mom was born again and kind of just brought her husband along with her. Mm-hmm. He was not a bad guy at all, but wasn't super religious. But, you know, they began being real religious. And so me and Tino started going to church. I started taking him to the church that I grew up in. And it wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It almost just looked like we were just two friends at church. And I think, well, the church that I grew up in, my great grandfather helped build the church.
Mm-hmm.
And our family is still huge in that church. And so I had a lot of family there, loving family, and they knew, or either knew or had an idea by this time of who I was, especially through rumors and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that. But as long as we weren't holding hands and kissing,
they didn't care.
They were friendly, and after church we'd talk outside, and just like it was whenever I was growing up, and
mm-hmm.
it felt fine and it felt okay.
Yeah.
And then later, me and Madi grew closer, and I started going to her churches, the churches that her families attended.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way. Her family and my family, we love each other. And I love her family. They have always treated me with respect, and they have always treated me nice. I don't have any bad times that I've seen things where I'm like, oh, I wish that wasn't that way, or, you know, especially with you and Madi and stuff like that. But I've never had it, you know, projected at me or Tino or anything like that. But then in September 2014, Madi calls me.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess scoot back just a little bit. Me and Tino during this time had been trying, at various points, trying to have a kid,
mm-hmm.
one way or another. We looked into fostering, we looked into surrogate, we looked into, I had a family member that was young and was going to have a kid, and the parents didn't want her to keep it. So we thought that would be ideal. And that ended up falling apart. We had a friend who said she would do it mm-hmm. over and over, and just excuse after excuse, and then finally decided not to. I mean, it just always seemed like it wasn't supposed to be what we were going to be. So we decided to just be super uncles, you know, and just and we traveled a lot and we had fun and we drank way too much, and we were probably headed in a really bad direction. I'm not kidding. I think that I remember probably about 4 months before everything changed. I just decided one day to look at our bank account and I only pulled out stuff that was like for sure drinking or partying. And I tallied it up, and it was like $2,300 in one cycle.
Like 1 month.
1 month. Wow. It was more than we paid on our house or a car. You know what I mean?
You'd have a nice house for that much.
And we were just throwing it away. I mean, we would spend $500 in one night.
I remember when we'd go to 2 and 2 and you'd buy like tons of shots. We never had to spend any money. I loved it, but I was like, damn, that was a lot of money.
I never, we didn't feel it, I guess, because it was just extra money.
Yeah.
And we paid our bills and we did whatever we needed to do. But I think we were just lost, and we were doing the motions of going to church, you know, not every week, but, you know, at least once, twice a month. And that made us feel good. But then you still hear the stories about how your life is wrong. And especially those days, you'd be in church and that would come up.
It was a big deal back then. And
it comes up, and then you know that everybody in the church that knows you knows that you just heard that. And it's awkward afterwards. It's awkward.
Yeah.
You know, it just never felt right after, you know, even though we could pass as just two buddies, the people that knew. And then when it would come up, it was just always super uncomfortable. So then September, I want to say like the 23rd, me and Tino had gone out the night before and got way drunk, wasted. I woke up on my sofa, and Tino was at work, and he went to work like at 12 that day. Like he was scheduled to go to work at 12 that day. So I guess he was able to sleep in a little bit, but I woke up on the sofa, and it was customary for me to walk outside and check on my car to see if I'd wrecked it or damaged it. So that's where we were at.
That's how y'all were living.
You know? And so I walked outside and my car wasn't there. And I was panicking. So I called Tino, and he was like, it wasn't there whenever I got up. I don't even know how we got home.
I forgot
so panicking. Finally, a couple of hours later, I get a call from one of my cousins who said that he knew where I'd parked it and he'd come get me. So I'm laying there on the sofa, and I'm like feeling a little bit better about where my car is at. And the phone rings again, and it's Marty. And I don't answer it because I'm supposed to be at work. I called in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm supposed to be at work. I'm not even going to answer it. She called again. And then she called again. And I was like, she probably has a freaking flat tire. I'm going to have to go find her. Like I thought, how am I going to go get her in my car? You know what I mean? Like I thought something had to be wrong for her to be calling, and she knew I was at work. And so I answered it, and she was like, how come you're answering your phone? And I was like, well, so I just kind of explained that the car was missing and I was looking for it. And she was like, I need you to, she told me that she'd been sitting at work talking to somebody, one of her coworkers, she worked at a place that had a bunch of places in that building. And she was talking to a worker at one of the other places while they were outside having a cigarette. And she knew that person's niece was going to adopt a baby to somebody in California. So in the conversation, she just asked about it. And Mari's story might be different than this, because I feel like I'm
remembering what you heard.
Yeah, you know, kind of like how, you know, your memory is just, this is what I remember. But what she said was, you should call her because the adoption fell through. And I was like, what do you want me to say to her? And she was like, Matt, as soon as I heard her say it, I knew it was your baby. And I was like, Mari, there's no way. Like I was so like against it. And she said that the girl had told the family in California that she had had all her prenatal care and had what is it called? Where you make sure there's no downs.
Sonogram. Oh, yeah, that.
And because the mother was in her 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And when they found out that there was no amnio and there was no prenatal, they backed out.
Mm-hmm.
So now the baby that was in September and the baby was due in December.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they weren't going to take it. And now this mother was panicking because there was no place for this baby to go and she didn't want it. And she didn't have any place to take care of it. She didn't have a house. She didn't have a car. She didn't have anything. Anyway, Marty's explaining all this to me and I'm still like, what? And she was like, Matt, she said something to the effect of, that family threw this baby away because it might be sick. She said, would you throw a baby away because it might be sick?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no. And she was like, I can't remember how she asked me, but she told me to answer that question. How would you answer that question? Something like that. And I said, well, if God put that baby in our lives, then we would take care of it. And we have insurance and we would do everything for it. We would take care of it, sick or not. And she was like, see, it's supposed to be your baby.
Yeah. I know.
And so I hung up with her and I had the phone number. And I waited for like an hour because I was like, how am I going to call this lady and be like, felt like I was answering a Craigslist ad.
Yeah.
Like, hi, I'm calling about your baby. You know, I just didn't know what to say or how to even begin the conversation. But I did finally, and we talked for like 4 hours. And then like 3 or 4 days later, we met at our house.
Mm-hmm.
And
what did Tino say when you told him? Because you had to tell him.
He was jaded by this point with the baby thing. I remember we have a rent house, and the plumbing at the rent house was backed up, and he was snaking it. He was, and I walked in the back because it happened really fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like we could have conversations about it. Like I got off the phone and I was like, is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, if it is happening, I need to talk to him about it. So, because I was like, hell yeah, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I walk outside and he's doing the snake, and I had kind of explained it to him, and he was like, it's not gonna happen. He just was like, he's pessimistic most of the time anyways. Like anything we do, like he only sees the bad things that could happen. And then when it's done, he's like, oh my gosh, I love it. You know, like it's just, he's a half cup kind of guy. Yeah. And so I told him, and he was, like he just was really, what's the word?
He didn't want to get invested.
Yeah, he didn't want to get invested, so he was like indifferent. Like he was just like, we'll see. Just let me clue me in later. With what happens. And then about 3 days later, she had a doctor's appointment because we told her if we were gonna do this, she was gonna have to. She hadn't been at all.
Yeah.
And so I always said, well, we're gonna start taking you, and you're gonna start going. And she said, okay. Like 3 days later, there was an appointment, and we went, and he went with us, and he was just real quiet through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got in the car, and he said something to her from the back seat, like, well, when are you going to decide? Because we need to know so that we can start planning.
Yeah.
Something like
y'all
that.
had a roommate at the time in your house.
Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, I decided the first day I met y'all. And I was like, you did? And she was like, yeah. Like, and so that was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but we still didn't let ourselves get super excited. I mean, there was excitement, but it was more of we were hesitant. We were cautiously excited.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe like a week later, I told one of my sisters at a barbecue, and she told everybody before I could walk out of the room pretty much. And then it felt real because
Yeah.
now it was out there. It was,
Mhm.
we hadn't even spoke it out of our mouths.
Yeah.
And now my sister told everybody, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we met her, the birth mom, on like the 29th at the end of September. And Chloe was born November 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
She was like 6 weeks
Yeah, because we
early.
had just announced it.
Yeah. And we put on the announcements that it was December like 24th or 20th or something like that.
Yeah. I'll have to get the pictures on the video.
And December 3rd or November 3rd,
yeah,
she came. And
yeah, you called me in the middle of the night because I was taking pictures. It was like, you called me at 12 and then you called me again at like 5 or something.
Yeah. Well, and I was in college at the time, and my brother had a baby that day.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at the hospital for hours, and I had a test the next day, and I just wanted to go home and go to sleep. And I was just waiting so I could take a picture with my brother's baby so I could go home and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And we got home probably at about 11 o'clock that night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go straight to bed because I got to get up. And like an hour later, the phone's ringing, and it's the birth mother. And she's like, I think I'm having like these, like, I don't know, like contraction, like, you know, those Braxton Hicks things. And I was like, first of all, this is not your first kid. And I was just grumpy.
You're tired.
And I think I said something to her like, I think you should just drink some water and go to sleep.
I think you did.
Like I know anything about having a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, you know, all right, thank you. She was real nice.
Yeah.
And then about 4 a.m, she calls again. And I remember just looking at my phone, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta be up like in 3 hours. And I was like, hello. And she goes, like, was just screaming, coming from the other end of the phone. And I just woke up Tino, and I said, it's happening. There's no way it's not. Like, she is screaming. So we raced to her house to pick her up, and she was gone.
Oh, yeah.
They'd already taken her to the hospital. So we raced to the hospital, and then we got there, and you met us there.
Yeah, you called me, and I was like, Marty, I gotta go. And I met you there. I got there as quickly as I could.
And then I remember we walked into the room. Tino's going to hate me for saying this part. But we walked into the room, and the baby was coming, and they were just trying to talk about if they were going to do epidural or not. And one of the nurses said, no, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And another nurse was saying that she didn't want to do it until the birth mother had been drug tested, because they didn't want to give her those drugs if she had been on drugs. So it was like a deal where they were having a conversation, and Tino just glanced over, and of course she's in the birthing bed with her legs in stirrups, and Chloe was close. She hadn't crowned yet, but she was.
Yeah.
She was close.
Yeah.
And I remember Tino just looked over there, and he goes, disgusting.
I believe that.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And the people looked at us, and I just said, go sit down over there. And then they said that they were going to go ahead and do the epidural.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked us to walk out of the room, which I thought was weird.
I think they were going to check her.
Is that what they were going to do?
Yeah, because I got there, and they're like, y'all just walked out of the room. And they're like, they're checking her real quick. They were trying to see what she was dilated to. And they had y'all walk out because that's a little bit in there.
Well, I just remember thinking it was weird because
and then we
just saw her vagina in the air, and now they want us to walk out. What else are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's
because they have to stick their whole hand up there.
Yeah,
they were going to check her.
You were in the there in the waiting area.
I had just gotten in the waiting area, and y'all had just walked out. Yeah,
and then we were just talking. I think we were just talking.
Yeah, it was like a couple minutes.
And the nurse popped her head out through the window, and she's like, come on. And we were like, oh, okie dokie. Like, go in there, and there she was.
She was already born in like 2 seconds.
Like, we walked in, and she was coming out, like.
Yeah.
And then
they already had her on the other side.
You were, like, snapping pictures.
Yeah. It was quick.
And And I think after we had Chloe, and after she was in the NICU for
a while,
for about 11 days, and she had drugs on board, and we knew that was a possibility. And but luckily she had no withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
She was perfect. She just didn't. She was early, so she didn't know how to suck, and that's the biggest reason, because I had a feeding tube. She didn't have any issues. We just had to get her to where she would start sucking on the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even in the hospital thinking, like, how surreal it was that 5 weeks ago I was laying on my sofa not knowing where my car was at.
Mm-hmm.
And now we had this baby. And I remember thinking like, God, she's so lucky, because we're going to love her so much.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started thinking about how maybe he did it because of us too, because we were so like broken, and
mm-hmm.
we were just living. We were just existing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was no drive in our lives. There was no purpose. I mean, and I remember thinking that, God, there's no way that set of events would have happened
mm-hmm.
without God. Like,
yeah,
there was, I mean, Marty
being there
did it, but I mean, it was just a perfect storm. And it was like 5 weeks. I mean, from day 1 to 5, I mean, she was here. And so that's whenever I told Tino, and we talked about it, that, you know, we needed to get back into church. And I thought it was going to be perfect. I thought,
mm-hmm.
now we have a family. I thought even almost maybe we'd be more accepted, because they would see that we're an actual family. We're not just two gay dudes, you know. And it felt worse. It felt, and it could have just been us. I'm not saying anybody ever treated us bad, or
you felt
it. It just felt like all eyes were on us, especially after we had Chloe, especially when we started bringing her to church. It was just,
mm-hmm.
and it didn't matter where we went. Even that we took her to our church, we took her to Marty's church, we tried different churches, and it just, nothing felt right. And it felt wrong, because, well, in those churches, they were all Catholic churches, and they just, I just felt a different feeling. I felt like they would have rather us just look like two friends
mm-hmm.
than to be a family coming in.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about what this was going to look like later. You know, how are we going to baptize our daughter?
Yeah.
How are we going to let her know about God and the church we want to go to will be telling her that her family is wrong.
Yeah.
Or that her family is an abomination.
Yeah, that happened.
And I know that happened to y'all.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, whenever it happened to y'all, and Chloe wasn't even on the radar.
Maya was like 2.5.
I remember thinking, I will never put my daughter in a church that would do that to her.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, shortly after that, I think y'all started going to more.
Mm-hmm.
And
2015.
We
16.
Went with y'all several times, and we liked it. I mean, the people are. One thing I wanted to say on this was that More Church was the first time that I was able to feel comfortable in a church, and I never felt like everybody's eyes were looking at us. Mm-hmm. Maybe the first day, but I think it was just because we were excited, new, and they were like, "Hello!" Everybody was so happy to see us. We didn't even know them, and they knew us, like mm-hmm. because of y'all, and it was just nice. Like I remember walking out of there and thinking, or talking to Tino, and I was like, "That was way different," and it was nice. And the only thing that was missing for us was we grew up like in a Catholic church, and that mm-hmm. setting, and that like the rituals and
traditions,
and how it's supposed to, I know a lot of people don't like it, but the pray and sit down and get up and the responses and that is something that I grew up with and that I liked.
Yeah.
Especially after I learned it whenever I was in church. I wanted to do it. I couldn't wait to go to church after I learned those things when I was younger, because I was happy that I knew them and I was happy to be able to respond like everybody else. And then to go from that to not feeling wanted or not feeling comfortable. I was like, I wish it was more like that, because that's what I'm comfortable with. And so that's, I mean, I did want to mention that because I never want anybody to feel, and they probably don't, this is just me overthinking everything, but
they don't, they love y'all.
Don't love the church and not super grateful for opening our eyes to a church that actually treats their parishioners like everybody is exactly the same, because we never had that before. I've never been in a church like that before. We have been kind of looking, and we have found a church that we think that we are happy with, and hopefully it keeps going in that direction, and I feel like it will, and it is a lot more like what we're used to and what we're comfortable with. And so
is it Episcopal?
It's Episcopal.
Yeah, so it's very similar.
Yeah, I mean, they even talk about Catholicism while we're there. I mean, the responses are almost exactly the same. There's some things that are different. And the biggest thing is like they are just so welcoming and loving, and I mean, like, not that my church or any other church that we've been to wasn't welcoming and loving. It's just you have a feeling and you can't shake it. You know?
Oh, you feel it. You feel it in your spirit. That's how we felt. We tried to go to Catholic churches, and it was like the whole time I felt like they were praying for us to not be gay or something. Like, it just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Where that's like what you said with Moore. You just felt like you finally were at home, like you were safe. You didn't have to go to the club to feel accepted. You finally got to go to a church and you felt accepted. And that's how you feel. I sang at that church in a same-sex wedding, the Episcopal church. So it's a really amazing. They're really nice people that ran the wedding and that run the whole thing. And
even the first time we actually were able to go, we decided to go there right before COVID started, and then they closed it. But we kept talking with the deacon and a couple of other people on their page, and like they added people to it and just kept corresponding with us just here and there. And then when we finally decided to go, I was looking at their website and I couldn't figure out from their website what times were correct, because they had so many times listed on their thing, and I was like, is this a time to go, or is this a time that it's aired? So, and there was no numbers to call, and I called the church number and it just went. So I just found there was like a directory, and I just picked the first number, and I just said, I'm gonna call and just hope
someone answers.
So this guy answers, and he's super nice. His name was Cliff Craig, and he said, no, you come, this time we'll be there, and my wife is going to be the one officiating today. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. I just need to get information. And we walked in, and when we walked in, his wife and two other people walked up to me, and they said, "Are you Matthew?" And I was like, "Yes." And
that's so
like, good. Is this your husband? And like, it was just so sweet. And they had people ready for us to sit next to, and they showed us, exactly what we'd be doing, and it was just so freaking nice. Like, and
feel loved.
Yeah, it was just super nice. Like, so I'm excited. Super glad that we're able to have that, and I think that, hopefully it's going to turn into a long-term deal with us. So
it's a good place.
I think that that's most of my story. Almost. I think that that's the biggest things that I've been through with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You hit almost every single thing. You did good. Yeah. I loved it. I don't know. We've been going for about an hour and a half though. Okay. I was like, the whole time I kept thinking, I hope Chloe's not out of school already and he's going to
No,
not
she
get
gets
there?
out of school in about 30 minutes.
Okay, good. No, it was good. There's a lot of stuff I
felt like I was
didn't
talking
know.
too much.
No, you didn't. That's what a podcast is. When it's Madi, this is something we've talked about a lot. When it's Madi, because I'm married to her and I just have conversations with her all the time and I talk a lot more. I tend to talk over her, but it's because it's a habit just in my everyday life. So then when we're here, I'm like, oh yeah, shut up, Leticia. So it's nice that you talked a lot.
I was like, maybe I should be quiet and let her ask me a question.
No, you were. I kept looking at the card and like, okay, he's good. You were staying on track, so I didn't have to do anything. You made my job easy.
I wanted to look down, but I was like, should I look down?
Yeah, you did. You did good. Yeah. So I think that's good. I think that's a wrap. I'm getting cold down here. It's freezing.
It is getting cold.
Yeah, it's cold. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you all for listening. As always, have a great one. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to my mom's podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give this video a big thumbs up. Also, thanks for your comments and your feedback. Hey guys, thanks. Hey guys, thanks for listening to my podcast.